The Uganda Law Society for the last few months has grappled with scandal after scandal, most recent of which has been the what have most have termed as the botched coup of the president, Council Semakade, by the Secretary General, Philip Munabi. Now, the question that befalls us all is, amidst all all the multitudes of challenges and scandals the society is facing, what is the future of the society as it is? What are the effects of all these things? Is there a future at all? What are the prospects following all this? With me today in studio, I have an illustrious panel of students to discuss this very riveting topic. I shall let them introduce themselves. From my extreme right, coming in. Go ahead, Abraham, start us off.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Danita. I am Elomabon Abraham. I'm a law student from UCU. As well, I'm a serving student leader.
Okay, then welcome, Abraham. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Haruna?
It's my pleasure to be here and meeting my brothers and sister Danita. My name is Nyombi Haruna from the Islamic University in Uganda, here in Kampala. I'm a law student as well. I'm a student leader. I serve as the guild speaker of that university and also an aspiring speaker for the Uganda National Students Association. Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to a good conversation about our society.
It's a pleasure to have you, Haruna. And then right next to me.
Good afternoon to our viewers. My name is Etanu Jesse Meruka. Thank you so much, Danita, for having me today. I'm honored to be part of this conversation. I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree in law at Uganda Christian University, and I'm pumped for this discussion.
Yeah, so am I. Extremely pumped. It's quite the engaging topic, so I think we should just delve right into it. Haruna, I'll open the conversation with you. I have given a brief highlight of, I've alluded to scandal after scandal, the multiple issues grappling the society, but I'd like you to delve more into that for our viewers. What exactly has, over the last few months and most recent over the last week, into the weekend has befallen the society? If you could just give us a brief overview of what exactly the history has been like.
Well, for starters, the Uganda Law Society is a creature of statute, an act of parliament that started up the Uganda Law Society, basically to bring about all lawyers, in this regard, all advocates in Uganda. They are into one kind of association, which is the Uganda Law Society, and it's there by virtue of the Uganda Law Society Act that was enacted in 1956. And it has the mandate, the Uganda Law Society has the mandate of ensuring that there's rule of law in this country, promoting the rights and freedoms of Ugandans, ensuring that there is judicial independence as well, overseeing all such things. And when you look at that act, when you read the act, you realize every person has got the mandate. There are people that are supposed to be there. For instance, the president, the vice president, the secretary. The law also provides for the attorney general and the solicitor general, and of course each of them has got their own mandate. But in the recent past, we realize one secretary general, senior counsel for this matter, Philip Munabi, overstepped his powers, I should say that, and expelled the president. Interestingly, without justifiable reasons, I should say, because under the law, there must be justifiable reasons, and the procedures must also be always followed. But from hearsay and what is always said, since that expulsion letter, the fake letter from the Secretary General, it emanates from the statements made by the President of Uganda Law Society. And for me, those statements that they are referring to, or even the kind of language that the President has always been using, Senior Counsel Semakade, the radical president, I believe this is part of what lawyers should be embracing: freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, and freedom of speech. And so it's a question of now the law. and morality that people are bringing into governance, and that needs to be interrogated and even be addressed. Yes.
Okay, then. Thank you so much, Haruna. But just to clarify for our viewers, legally speaking, there are no how should I put this, repercussions for the language that Senior Counsel Samakade utilized. Am I correct? It constitutes freedom of expression. It constitutes
Definitely.
freedom of speech. It's a right each and every one of us have. Just to clarify, right?
That's true, definitely.
Okay.
Because well, legally, language cannot be curtailed, and the way you interpret what I'm saying could be different from what he does interpret. So you give it different connotations, and not the denotations, the nuances that are in the words that someone is speaking. What needs to be paid attention to is the message that this person is delivering. Pay attention to what they want to say and not how they are saying it.
And
Because you have a different way of expressing yourself and also have a different way. What is most fundamental here is what is he saying, what is the president bringing to the attention of the public, to the attention of the members of the Law Society.
And what do you think he was trying to say with those statements? Actually, to whom? Actually, give us background. To whom were the statements made? Of what manner were they? And what do you believe he was driving at?
Well, without paying particular attention to these specific words that the president was using that led to his expulsion, we all know Councillor Isaac Semakade. First of all, he's a lawyer to Dr. Stella Nyanzi. And in the run-up of the elections of the Uganda Law Society, he uses this kind of language, what most people term as be unpalatable, distasteful, but surprisingly, over 70% of the members of society voted for him. So that means it did not matter to them the language that Semakade uses, but what he stands for. And in this regard, we should be paying attention to what he is trying to address. For instance, if he is addressing, in whatever language that he is using, the Attorney General and even the Office of the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, what is he trying to
Convey?
tell them? What is he standing for? So that these people have to listen. When you look at our constitution, I think that under the national objectives, there is that objective, the national objective of accountability. And these, you realize these are public officers that must be held accountable, and indeed they are required to be answerable to the people of Uganda. And Semakade is not different from any other Ugandan, and indeed he's even privileged, being the president of the Uganda Law Society. He has an upper hand over other Ugandans to speak on their behalf, to say, please, there is a problem here. How do we address it? For instance, if he's addressing the issue of having the Attorney General part of the Uganda Law Society and he's saying, oh, this is not right, it emanates from the report from Professor Sempewa, I think that was in 2012. Yeah, that the Attorney General is not fit to be part of the Uganda Law Society Council. And there are reasons that were given. Like I was telling my colleagues before I came in here, when you look at the structure of the Uganda Law Society and even its mandate, the lawyers, the advocates, are part of, these are officers of court. And by extension, they are part of the judiciary, which is another arm of government. The Attorney General, on the other hand, by virtue of Article 119 of the Constitution, is the legal advisor to government and is a cabinet member. And in this regard, he's an executive member, he's a member of the executive. And so there could be a conflict of interest here, where you're seeing a member of the executive at the same time appearing in this other arm of government. And so there are many, many, many underlying issues that we have to interrogate than just paying attention to the language that is being used by Councillor Isaac Semakade. When you look at when you hear the issue that is raising about the Director of Public Prosecutions, without regard, what he's saying, without paying attention to the words, others are like, people are languishing in prisons. There is a responsibility that's given to this that is vested in the office of the DPP to ensure that justice is served. But cases are taking long in courts of law, and there's nothing that's being done. And if there is, there are so many other issues that have to be addressed. And for me now, this is very critical. It's very fundamental to me. that it has to be paid attention to than just mere words that are being used, the language that is being used. I think it's just a diversion if we are looking at Isaac Semakad as a person who is immoral, unethical in the way they are addressing, they are putting forward their issues. Let's look at what they are saying. For me, that's the most important aspect.
Okay, then thank you so much, Haruna. Abraham, I'll bring you into this conversation right now. So the weekend, we were all surprised when we came across via Twitter. Most of us came across it via Twitter. The Secretary General of the Law Society expelling not just the president, but the vice president as well. Unprecedented, for lack of a better, actually, at the very least, it is unprecedented. And then not only does he expel them, but he appoints himself as caretaker as well. Very, very controversial. And a lot of the issues that came up, one of the issues that came up was we saw no legal provision being cited as a background for this. And so there was Council Philip Munabi goes on NBS yesterday, and the question arises, who are the council members? What meeting was this? What legal provisions? And these were all diverted. Like he circumvents around all these questions. So we also see the president come in with all council members, signing on a release saying, we're still in control and we're going to have an extraordinary meeting on 17th December. So the question arises, what is, in the case of an expulsion actually coming about, what is the appropriate legal procedure? Is there any validity to the process Council Philip Munabi took up on himself? Is there any validity to what the president, the steps the president and the rest of the council members have made? Is there any validity to the suspension that has been bestowed upon the Secretary General? The question arises around the legality of it all. Talk to us about the legal framework surrounding all this.
Thank you so much. I think the first thing to say is that we are not people of ordinary jurisprudence. We really have knowledge about how things work out in the law. And I believe Council Munabi is aware of the principles of justice. I believe he's aware. And actually, the legality of what he did is nowhere to be seen, because in his mandate or the duties he has in his position on the council don't really portray anything like what he did.
Tell us about his duties.
Not really, because actually I listened to him when he was at some TV, some television, and he was coming out to state that he's the voice of the voiceless because of the actions of senior counsel. And I understand, because even me, I don't agree with my brother right here because of the decorum. Actually, decorum is a backbone of our legal career. It's a backbone. The reason as to why we are respected, the pride we have, is because of the decorum, because of the way we take ourselves, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we dress, the way we present ourselves.
And yet, where has that gotten us as a country, legally speaking? Our judicial system, where has decorum gotten us as a society? Can you tell me how many? It's very interesting that there are more people on remand at Luzira than there are people serving their sentence. That is a devastating, and we're talking of hundreds of people. Decorum has gotten us hundreds of people on remands. I met a gentleman who had been on remand since 2006. That is nearly my lifetime. And that had been, forgive me, I'm interrupting. This is a topic I'm quite passionate about. But where has decorum gotten us? But beyond that, over 70% of the Uganda Law Society came out to vote for a man whose the backbone of whose campaign was a lack of decorum, decolonization, bang the table, everything contrary to what we have been standing for as lawyers. And yet he had not just 70%, but a number that had not been seen in the last we had never seen this number. Advocates came out in support of this gentleman.
To begin with, I believe that all the people that supported senior counsel saw that he had the capability. Actually, I won't say they failed to weigh, but they knew the negative part of his conduct. And they saw more weight on the positive part, whereby he has the capability to clean up the system. The issue of the backlog, it has been tried or attempted by the ULS from way back since 1992 when they had the legal aid project. Then they had the pro bono project. Like, they have been trying to attempt this and solve it. But now the problem comes out to be that it is part of the judiciary. The problem is with the system within the judiciary, which actually senior counsel is willing to solve. But the problem is there is no way we shall solve the problems while we are carrying a crown of illegality, or a crown that abuses the dignity of our career. Now, on that point, what I'm trying to mean is that however much he has the agenda that we really all want to see successful, but the problem is, how are you presenting yourself? Recently, in the report of 2022, the report of the ULS, 2022-2023, it has digits that the lawyers that are above practice of 6 years and above are 1,000 something. Then the junior lawyers are 2,000, 2,000 and some other digits. Now the question is, if those we call our seniors in this legal career are conducting themselves like that, they are only 1,000. What will happen to the 2,000? What corruption will happen to the 2,000? And what will be the future of us?
What do you mean by corruption?
Like corrupting our decorum, like the behavior, not like the corruption in the perception of compromising. But if we lose decorum, I really can't, I fail to imagine how our career will be. Because I'm basing on the vision of the ULS from the beginning.
Okay then, Abraham, let me present a counter to that. You're basing it off of, as a lawyer, as a law student getting into the law profession, there's a certain way we're being taught, not just from our first year of law school, but you know, those pre-entry exams, you had to dress a certain way, you had to carry yourself a certain way. And this was to earn your respect, it was to have you viewed in a certain way. And so we've had lawyers for the last, as long as law has, by the white man, has existed in this country, lawyers have been carrying themselves in that regard. And it has worked out well for lawyers. And yet, you have a lady who has not seen her children for nearly 15 years of their lives, languishing in prison because of the system created, actually upheld by we that, you know, clad ourselves in these suits every day, clad ourselves in these lovely, lovely white shirts of ours, clad ourselves in these robes and these wigs.
Using proper language.
We're carrying ourselves with decorum. But is decorum really servicing the people for whom we vow to help? I came into law school to say to help the needy person. I mean, right now I'm the needy person, but that's not the point. I came into law school to help the needy. My decorum has not, the decorum of my seniors has not helped the needy. In fact, it has just been a downward cycle from there on. What is decorum at the cost? How do you weigh decorum versus someone's life?
Now, let me first ask you, if he uses the language he uses, or the way he conducts himself, will that make the course of seeking justice run fast? Because the question is, what was the rationale behind us conducting ourselves, our pioneers, the pioneers of the legal system of Uganda? What was the rationale behind ourselves being presented in a suit, using proper language? And now, the question is, if you are the officer of the law, if you seek to emphasize or to rebuild morality and obedience of the law in the society, but you are also behaving contrary to it. Actually, I've been reading the article. I discussed it with him.
1 second,
Yeah.
before you proceed. Is he trying to rebuild morality or legality? Because those are two
Yeah, there's a
different
distinction
things.
between legality and
Yeah,
please
they
proceed.
are, on the part of legality, on the part of legality, you're taking me back to the point of Council Mnavi.
Yes.
And I will step back there. But morality, what I'm trying to mean is that our country, Uganda, there are three fundamental pillars that we look at: morality, God-fearing, and also professionalism or ethics that we look up to in every profession or in every career or in every sector that governs this country. And now on morality, the way we behave amongst our societies. So his language, I'm not against his agenda or what he is capable of or what he has done, because he has credibility from what he has done. But now the problem is on the language. That's why I was taking you to the article of Mr. Christopher Lubogo. He gives a beautiful lecture about language, about using language. But later on, when he's concluding his article, he brings out a statement that however much the language of senior counsel is unpopular, or it is defaming, if I may say, or degrading to the people he communicates to, but the rationale behind it, what he was trying to say, the rationale, but there is no way we can take the rationale when what is sugarcoating it is really dangerous to our existence. I'm talking in a perspective of the future of our legal career. Now, back on the legality of Council Mnavi, I believe the best way to approach the matter, since he said is the voice to the voiceless, I can understand where he's coming from. Not everyone is comfortable with the way senior counsel is conducting himself. But the best way to approach it would be litigation, the best way. Because he actually, if this document went untamed, actually,
Litigation on what grounds?
If he felt that like senior counsel was wrong, he would complain to the law counsel. You understand? So that, or if not, he would go for a checkup on his conduct.
The ULS Act is very clear about dismissal of an individual from their position, from this particular position. It provides, amongst other things, unsound mind, dismissal from the bar in Uganda or any other country, resignation, and then very pertinent, I think, to this discussion is a consensus in
By
a
the
general
members,
meeting.
Yes.
Now
No.
the question arises, how is a general meeting? How does a general meeting come around?
You're mistaking me. The approach, I'm on the approach, not the, I'm first handling the approach, the legality of the approach, not the document. For the document, if it went untamed or uncontrolled, or if it wasn't rebutted, it would set a very bad precedent, because, which means an administrator can take a decision without considering principles of natural justice, because they are, the essence of these guidelines in the statute are that through a general meeting whereby you accord the person you're alleging, where you're accusing that is behaving contrary, you give them a chance to present themselves. Why? Why are they doing this? Why are they behaving in such a matter? But it didn't happen. That's why I'm saying that the approach he used was very wrong. To me, it's totally wrong. And if he felt like there is something wrong, he could, because where I come from, or in the localities I come from, it is believed that if daddy and mommy have a quarrel, everything ends in the bedroom. It does not come out to the family or to the public, whereby he did the contrary, which means he was trying to cool fire with fire. He was trying to solve a wrong conduct with an illegality, which wouldn't make sense. But if you understand the grounds he stand on to do this, the grounds he stand on to issue such a document is that they are not comfortable with how senior counsel is.
Who are they who
Who
are
is
not
they?
comfortable? That's what I want to pick from.
Only the two that are on the document.
That is the central representative and the secretary.
So that is why I say that in the approach or in the right way of handling the legality of this, or the best way to solve this problem is through a general meeting.
Yes.
And in a general meeting, that is where a few, actually not all, the principles of natural justice are applied. Not all. Because during the general meeting, it is not enough time for the whole process to go through, which means the only option is either you go for a checkup on his conduct and behavior than behaving the way he behaved. It was actually beyond ultra bias,
Okay,
if I
then.
may say.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Abraham. Very astute contributions as usual. Jesse, I'll bring you into the conversation right now. 70% of the Law Society voted for Council Semakade to bring him into power, right? But not just 70%. It's a number we hadn't seen before in previous elections, and yet he'd managed to draw out this crowd. They believed in him, they gave him the mandate, they bestowed upon him power. Now we have had ever since, I think it was in September that he came into power, scandal after scandal after scandal. Do you believe that these scandals and all the surrounding effects have in any way affected the perception of the law community, of the advocates of Council Semakade? Do you think that it's maybe shaken his grounding, as a president, that his constituents would, if given the option, hang him as where he stands? Do you believe that it's been that way generally, based off of what you witnessed? But then also, were you an advocate right now? Would you also believe that? Would you also want to do away with him as a president?
Thank you so much, Danita. So the events of the past few weeks have been quite interesting, I would say. As we've talked about scandal after scandal, yeah. But the way I look at Semakade, he is a sort of a disruption kind of leader, yeah. And there are times when, in a democratic society, there builds a clog in the system, a certain establishment that needs a disruption kind of leader to come and demolish that kind of establishment, right? So when Semakade ran, the kind of person that the lawyers saw in him was that kind of disruption leader. They didn't want a normal kind of person. They needed a bulldozer, right? Because he was running on, he talked about decolonization, democratization, digitalization, and there was a fourth one, I forget. But he wanted to remove many of these things that he felt and many lawyers felt were an injustice in society. One of them was, of course, that aspect of the Attorney General being part of the Uganda Law Society Council, right? Some of these things are colonial in nature, yeah, and he's anti-colonial. So I believe, on your first question, Semakade is very resolute on his decisions. For those who have been following him, even before he ran for the office of president, he has been someone who is resolute on his decisions, and that is something I believe many lawyers saw in him and felt like, okay, this is the person that we need. Now, on to your next question. Would I be one person to say I do not want Semakade as president, or Council Semakade as president of Uganda Law Society? It's a yes and no question. Because I believe that there are certain times when morality, decorum have to be put aside for I should say common sense to thrive. Yeah. I look at the things that Semakade has been mandated to do by the electorate of the Uganda Law Society, and it needs someone with that kind of character. Now, the only issue there would be that, democracy is a government of the people. Of the people means that the person who is elected to a position has to represent the people, including their moral values and what they expect of him. The problem that Semakade has is that he represents what the people want to do, but not their moral values. And I believe that it's important for every person, including the president of the Uganda Law Society, any person in an elected position should reflect the values of the people that they represent. So, on grounds of decorum, I would want Semakade to step down as president of Uganda Law Society because he has, in my opinion, gone beyond a certain limit of what is decorum. But then again, he is the kind of leader that you need to implement a radical agenda in the Uganda Law Society. That is the duality of how I see this issue.
So how do you balance radicalism with decorum? Where is the line, you believe?
Okay. One of the leaders that I support and who I believe is very next to Semakade in very many respects is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the president-elect of the US, is one such person who he is a disruptor kind of leader, right? But on the other hand, the decorum is lacking. He says what he wants to say, whenever he wants to say it, and he does not have
A filter?
Yes, a filter or a kind of a restraint on what he says. But in the past election, 76 million people, that is more than half, way more than half of the American people chose him to be president. So they see all these shortcomings in his character, in how he conducts himself, in how he treats women. But they say this is the person that we need to better our lives, to give us justice. So, pardon me on your question.
What is the balance between
balance.
Radicalism and,
Okay.
and decorum?
Okay. The balance between radicalism and decorum. I believe, okay, my belief is it comes down to, it's on a personal level to that particular person. So for President Council Semakade, on his side, he has to acknowledge the fact that he has a big mandate that he has been given. And he should not allow that big mandate to be curtailed by character issues. You get it? So I believe that he should be radical, yes. However, he should reflect the moral values of the people. Something that I believe President-elect Trump has learned over the years, to be radical in how he conducts himself, but then again on the other side, have a limit so as not to curtail the big mandate that he has for the country.
But Donata,
Yes, please.
the mandate that Senior Council Semakade has from the electorate, and by the way, before I even gone that, I must let you know that this election, like we said, it's unprecedented. It's not only advocates that involved in this election. I was at Munyonyo, and there are very many students who came there to witness everything that was going on. And even the campaigns, students would text their lecturers who are advocates. Students would text their friends, their colleagues, everyone, please vote for Council Semakade. And when you go all those platforms, discussions were rotating around the ULS elections. So this was not a matter of only advocates. I must say it was a matter for all Ugandans. And the character of Council Semakade was well known by everyone in this country. Their mandate that they gave to him extended beyond just the language. And maybe as lawyers, language, okay, lawyering is a science, but it's also an art. And perhaps the language that Mr. Semakade uses is part of the art. It's an ingredient for him to express himself and advance a particular cause. So I don't want us to trivialize this, to bring it down to the language that he is using. Because like I said, this is an art. There is a different way that you would feel, okay, to say out something. This is subjective, and when you bring it even to morality, what is moral to you might not be moral to me. You get that? And even the values. What do you think that these are the values? You can't tell me over 5,000 people gathered in a particular place in Munyonyo to elect for someone that has been, particularly during his campaign, said, we are radical. What does the word radical mean? Someone who goes beyond, like who wants to break the status quo. Go against, someone who is very controversial. It's okay, we are decolonizing this, we are radical, we want to get back on track. So I want to assume that the members of the society understood who Semakade was as a person, but they said, we do away with this personality, this is what we are sending him to do. So their values are beyond what Semakade says, his outlook, his way of dressing, but the cause that he does advance. I want to tell you, I think you said this, the common person out there does not want to listen to the language. They want to say, is justice being done in courts of law?
But are we sure they don't want to listen to the language? You say that morality is individualistic, but there are certain things that cut across. For instance, we would all agree, and across the world, it has been agreed, theft is immoral. Murder is generally immoral. Rape is generally immoral. The way you speak to your elders in a certain way is generally immoral. The way you address, there are certain things that cut across the system. And so when you cross that boundary, you don't only disrespect the person to whom you've addressed your issue, but you disrespect a system upheld by individuals who believe in it.
Danita, I don't know whether you've lived in the slums, those ghettos.
Mm-hmm.
The language that people in the ghettos use, you wouldn't use it in the upper town. And even when you're sitting with people of high, maybe integrity, it's a different language. But in those kind of settings, it's okay with them. Now, when it comes to the language that Councillor Semakade is using, like I told you, he's a lawyer. And if you want good language, maybe expect this from the church leaders. What is advancing? These are legalities. They said, okay, Attorney General, you're misadvising government on this particular issue, regardless of how he's bringing it out. But we should pay attention to what he is addressing. Mr. Attorney General, there are wrongs being done against the people, and you're ill-advising government. For instance, I can tell you, there is a court petition, there is an appeal in the Supreme Court that's against where the Honorable, Kabaziburuka, it emanated from the Constitutional Court, where the civilians are not supposed to be tried in the military courts. And this case has gone, and it has taken years now in the Supreme Court, because it was appealed against by the Office of the Attorney General. It has not been dispensed of, whereas we are seeing people being arraigned before the military courts. And the Attorney General has not come out, maybe to ensure that this case is dispensed of, and even the judiciary, the leaders, the administrators of justice in this country, have failed to do a thing. And so would you expect someone to just come out and, just say things that make you happy without paying attention to that particular
No, but
issue?
then the question arises, how can you displease someone without inherently disrespecting them? You can be a contrarian within reason, not within reason per se, but there can't be a strike of balance.
That's where we are going wrong. Trivializing the entire conversation to the language and not paying attention to the issues that are being raised.
But then,
that's where the problem is.
Go ahead.
Because by this time we'll be talking about the administration of justice in this country. So do you want to tell me the language that he's using is more important than the people that are languishing in the...
No, but Abraham mentioned a very pertinent point, that is in regards to what Ugandans are. Ugandans have values, especially whether or not they are real or purported, they're what carries them through a certain... Even though they do not fully affect these values, they hold on to them, maybe as a shield, maybe as a background. They hold on to certain values. Now, you speak of the individuals in the slums and the like, and whilst you respect them, they are not the ones that gave Semakade the mandate. There's a certain class of people, I would say more privileged than the average Ugandan, that gave him the mandate. People that hold on to these values more than the average Ugandans, whether it be whether it be morality, God-fearingness, ethics, whether or not they conduct it in other segments of their life, their language they do, the way they carry themselves they do. Now, if you are addressing them and you expect a change to be made by them, and for the rest of society, you need to address them in a manner that reaches the very root of it all. But yes, Abraham, before he answers, go ahead. You had something to contribute.
On his submission, there are things that I felt like we really need to talk, because I need to educate him more of the dangers of this. One, the question I have, our tool of trade is speech and language. You get speech and language, and that is what packages. It's the packaging material of what we are delivering. And there is no way you're going to bring for me water in a black bottle and I take it. It's impossible. It's impossible. So then on the other point of people supporting and students supporting senior council, one, senior council has been outstanding. Actually, I had the testimony of Yasin Sentumba at Makerere. Yasin was really stuck with his future. That was the end of his future after the expulsion at the university where he was. That was the end, but senior council stood with him. Amongst other people he has been helping and where he has been actively involved. But now the point is, regardless of all the characters that we see are good for our country, the question is the dignity of our legal career. Where shall we be going? And actually, it is very important. I picked it up from his discussion that I realize, regardless of our involvement in the elections, but since we are citizens of this country, two, we are lawyers in making, we are students of the law. That gives us a ground to stand on as stakeholders on this issue. That's why I take this opportunity to call upon every student, every student of law who is not comfortable with this issue to use the right channels and complain. I believe if we have 70% of the members of the Uganda Law Society complaining against senior council's conduct
On the basis of comfort, your comfort supersedes hundreds of people on remand for an excessive period. Comfort is really, is that not a trivial
comfort,
issue?
Not comfort. Like he stated, the language in the slums and the language uptown is different. But the question is, there is a test that court usually employs when it is handling statements of defamation and other statements that are degrading. They usually apply two principles. One is the true innuendo and the false innuendo. Testing testing the magnitude of the word that is causing absurdity. So at this point, what he was saying that in the slum and uptown, the words don't connect. The question is that every word has a meaning and it has an insinuation. Which one carries more weight? And now, if you use the words he's using, actually, if we pick it up from way back, when he was still a junior lawyer, a junior advocate, he carried the same language, but not to the magnitude where it is right now. Because right now, it is directed to particular people the particular people that have reputation, people that if you attack them, you're affecting majority of Ugandans.
No, wait. So they have reputation, but they also have mandate.
Yeah, they
have a mandate to service the same people. Are they attacked? Is you speaking of the DPP in a certain way really attacking Ugandans more than it will if they end up in a legal dynamic that threatens, their 1/4 of their lives? People have been in jail for 1/4 of their lives. My lifespan, that is deplorable, that is inhumane, that is...
And so you're trivializing discussion. I mean, what does this ordinary person who is having, like you said, their child has been in prison on remand for 15 years, and by the way, for over petty offenses, many of these people that are there, ideally, they have never been tried.
Or their files have been lost. Do you know what it means for your files? And no one wants to start the process of gathering the evidence because your file has been lost. Someone lost your... I think you guys have experienced missing marks because someone lost your paper. But this is your file, the file that has your life.
And just like that example you've given, because I come in a different one, you say, okay, you're complaining of missing marks, but the way you came complaining, really is my way of expressing myself. Should it be
no,
such?
There are things that I'm not really comfortable with in this discussion.
Which is?
We have the vision of the ULS, which he stated actually, and their principal values and core values of the ULS. These two were discussed, were constituted, were established by the pioneers of the ULS. And in the principal values, we have the professionalism.
Yes.
One of them, professionalism. And now my question would be, if we get off the track of professionalism, how shall we accomplish the vision?
Okay, are we getting off the track of professionalism now? Or have we been off track long ago, but we've been masking it in decorum? And
Now, I've realized something. Professionalism, it's a word that is really big, and it needs to be broken down.
Please break
Now,
it down.
I will break it down direct to only the point of a decorum and conduct, leave alone the other part of
duty?
Duty, what is laid in the Advocates Act and other statutes or other legal documents. But now on decorum and conduct. The problem that I find with a senior counsel is that there is no way. Right now he can support his stand or his character and his conduct. But now what will happen if he leaves? What will happen after this? Because now the problem is, me where I come from, the university I come from, we are groomed in a way that we study some course units that instill morality in us and conduct, which means they are building a foundation for us to uphold the legal career as it is supposed to be. Now, on the issue of him supporting, of him advocating for the people that are suffering in jail, it is different from his conduct. Because literally, his message would be delivered. His advocacy would be successful if still the language was clean. Because lawyers, we are known of having a strong diction, dealing with paralegal jargons, playing around with words. That is known. But now he went vulgar. I emphasize the word vulgar because if for him he claims that the words he uses are okay because he understands them more. But now there are people that they are the public because we are answerable to them. We are answerable to the citizens of this country.
To add on to what he's trying to say, there are, of course, weightier problems and challenges than others. Like what you're bringing up of people languishing in prison while we are here arguing about language and all these other things. There are weightier problems than others, but just because a problem is weightier than the other doesn't mean we should ignore this one, in my opinion. You get it? Because as he talked about the values, there are 6 values of the Uganda Law Society. One of them is integrity. Under integrity is moral uprightness. Yeah. So I believe that however much you are pushing the right cause, there has to be an aspect of moral uprightness in that pushing. Yeah. So you you can say, okay, yes, he has bad language, but he's pushing the right cause. At what cost? We learn about precedent. What precedent does it set after he has successfully pushed his cause? That means that the moral uprightness of the legal profession will start to erode.
That's the modus operandi set.
Exactly. Yeah. It will start to erode, meaning that successive presidents after him and even the lawyers themselves will see that, oh, the legal profession, you don't have to, it's not a must, you can be vulgar if you want to. You get it? So I believe that, yes, let's push the major cause, the weightier cause, but let's call him out on this and say, okay, you have a right cause, but this is a wrong modus operandi. This is a wrong way of bringing it out.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. No.
I would like to ask him just a small question.
We must go on a break, though. We shall continue this discussion. As you can tell, the discussion is very, very heated, but we are going to be taking a short break, and we shall resume in a few. Thank you for keeping with us, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Thank you for staying with us, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon we're discussing the very controversial issue regarding the Uganda Law Society and its status as well as the way forward. I have an illustrious panel with me from multiple universities. And before we took the commercial break, the conversation had become heated. Points had to be made, so we'll just pick it off where it ended. Abraham, you had a dying point.
My point was on a question. Freedom becomes permissiveness at a point whereby people go past the limits of freedom and they become vulgar instead of communicating what they want. Now, on that, I wanted to ask a question to my brother here that of recent, we have been seeing cases of many bloggers on social media being prosecuted, right? Because of the same language, using very bad language. And now right now, from the recent statement made by senior counsel, if you compare it to some of the statements these individuals have been making, it is on the same line, right? Mm-hmm. So if the counsel or the advocate for such a person is using the same language the court is condemning, who will be colliding? Who will be spoiling the show?
Are they being condemned? Is it justifiably?
Actually, some there are two that are they two that are sentenced?
The cases in court over related to the Computer Misuse Act.
Yes.
However, if someone feels that Counsel Semakade has offended the law, I think let the law take its course. Okay. If you feel okay, you, Madam Danita, the DPP, feel like this language has in one way or the other violated your right, there are courts of law.
And actually,
but we have not seen that happen. I yet to see that happen.
That is where Counsel Munabi missed a step. If he felt like he wants to challenge the conduct of a senior counsel, he would have gone for that.
Public action, public interest litigation.
You get? So that is what me personally I feel like would be done if I was in position or I had capacity. Because right now I'm caught up with my academics. I'm not in the capacity. Not that however much the civil procedure rules give me a chance that I can represent my case, but I'm not in that capacity. But I would take up that cause. I would take it up. And then as I conclude to leave you speak, I think the conduct of senior counsel is just an influential matter on the topic that we had today. But there are also achievements to discuss from his time since he came to power and up to now. There are a few things he has done that I personally appreciate. And then on the other thing, there are other problems that are affecting our junior lawyers, because I have the opportunity to discuss with some of my course instructors, and they tell me the challenges they face, and whereby these challenges are under the capacity of the Uganda Law Society.
What are some of these challenges?
Some of this, and the leading one is exploitation. Exploitation. And you can't. You have your degree, you have your diploma, but at the end of the day, you become an office messenger. Like the way you are valued, it's the same as an office messenger. Like they have those issues, and at the end of the day, it's those that we call the senior counsels, like the senior advocates, are the ones exploiting. It would be a client. There we could see that maybe the problem is on quality of service delivered. But now the problem is exploitation from those that would be assisting them to be established in the legal career. And as I leave him to speak, I will emphasize the reason as to why we support, or I personally and the people that supported Council Semakati, is because of his credibility, not because of his conduct. That should be made clear. It's because of his credibility, not the conduct or language. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And indeed, I think this now brings us to the right condition that people that are fronting this, because of maybe the way he's handling himself, the way he's addressing people, they are in one way or the other trying to divert us from the cause that he is advancing. When you go to when you read the Act, the Uganda Law Society Act, in its vision and mission, you realize they are saying this the Law Society is there to be a proficient bar association that is premised on ensuring that there's access to justice, ensuring that there's rule of law and good governance in the country. And I think these are the things that Council Semakati is trying to address, to champion, regardless of how his conduct, like he said, the people that voted for him, this is what they wanted, regardless of his conduct, how he's trying to address those that are responsible, bring them to accountability in line with the objectives of the Uganda Law Society. When you talk about integrity, talk about competence and accountability, independence of the Uganda Law Society and professionalism, there's no one who is non-professional than a person who is corrupt. There's no one who has compromised their integrity than a person who has kept silent when people are dying of injustices.
But
so you cannot look at
it
in that way.
Injustice everywhere.
So these are the things that I think we should be paying attention to, and these are the very issues that he is trying to bring forward. No, the language notwithstanding. So these people that are diverting us, I don't know how to call them, they have maybe a different agenda. They have a different interest, and so they are advancing this. Okay, now this is what has happened. No, let's blindfold Ugandans. You say this man, the language he's using is distasteful, but you're trying to blindfold Ugandans on the issue that he is trying to address. The man is saying corruption in the judiciary, but because he's saying corruption with a lot of words that you feel uncomfortable with, you're not paying attention to the fact in issue about corruption. You're paying attention to the language. And this is being dishonest, especially in the legal fraternity and even amongst the intellectuals. I read a statement from the past presidents of the Law Society, people in government. Despite being dishonest, he's trying to bring you to order. He's trying to hold you accountable, regardless of the language that he's using. And I think we should come to our senses and say, okay, he's talking this way. I'm not interested in how he's saying it, but can I address these issues?
You know, when you're being taught communication, one of the things they teach you is that your message has not been delivered unless the person on the other side has received it, right? So if that pertains to things in regards to your tone, in regards to like the language you cater to. So what you're saying is that, and let me just paraphrase, he has made a message, he has delivered a message, but the message hasn't reached the other side because of the language he utilized.
The message has
has communication actually been made? Because now we are focusing on a different thing, whilst we could be focusing on a different thing. We could be focusing on, guys, the system is corrupt. Now we're focusing on, this man has said this about this woman. Can you imagine, guys? You have not, have you really communicated if the message is lost in transmission?
Danita, communication has been made and the message has been received. The only problem is that there are detractors that are trying. But
the issue is that they are not detractors. They are people who gave him the mandate. These are not detractors. This is like you doing something on the floor of parliament and your constituents are saying, but how could he? And then you say these are detractors. No, these are the people that gave you the mandate. You owe a duty to them, to listen to them, to uphold their views and to act accordingly. These
there
are
is a
not
deliberate
detractors.
attempt from the intellectuals, some of the members of the Law Society, to tarnish, to make Council Semakade appear to be someone that is unserious, because someone talks outrightly and say, okay, this is wrong, but because of the way he's speaking it out, there are these people who are deliberately changing his kind of this kind of
You know,
information that
there's
is
the
bringing
concept of
forward.
contributory negligence. Could you believe that there is an aspect, there's
It's
a manner
just
to which he
deliberate.
contributed?
It's just deliberate to misinform the public,
You know,
to change the communication.
two truths can
But-
exist at the same time.
I really want him to understand that it's not a diversion, it's a correction. It's a
And,
correction.
To
But it's a
concretize
correct-
your point that you're bringing out, in the recent days, I think it was either yesterday or the other day, MPs from Karamoja, just imagine the whole Karamoja region, especially the woman MPs, came out to condemn Semakade. Now, I talked about curtailing the bigger mandate. If you know you have a bigger mandate, don't come out to say something that you know is going to curtail that bigger mandate. So this Karamoja MP is coming out to condemn Semakade is going to curtail him from successfully, realizing the mandate that he has to do.
But you know,
Yes.
no, my apologies for interrupting.
Yeah.
We have had so many groups come out in the last week to condemn him. Where are these groups when women are being raped in custody, when people are being sodomized in custody, when people are being tortured in custody?
When iron sheets are being stolen in Karamoja.
Where are these groups? We speak of curtailing a mandate, but the mandate seems to or inherently be curtailed by the individuals. Must I convince you to do what is your mandate? Must I convince you to uphold the rule of law? Must I convince you to do your mandate as a parliamentarian? Why must I speak to you in a manner that, that is placating, that is palatable? Actually, must I even reach the point where I have to speak to you in a manner that is unpalatable? You have inherently gone and dismissed your mandate, and now I'm just coming as a hard citizen to tell you this is wrong.
Actually, thank you for bringing that out. But the fact is that all these groups are doing a lot. Female Lawyers Network that has come out to condemn Semakade, they are doing a lot for the women. Actually, many of these groups are doing a lot. And just as I said, they cannot let this, what you would call a less weightier problem, to just slide because it's not as weighty as people dying in prison and being there for a long time. But at the end of the day, I want to bring out that point again, that it does not mean that we let him go beyond the boundaries of what we call decorum or freedom of speech. We still need to say, okay, you are president. Maybe if it was a lawyer somewhere, but he is the president of the Uganda Law Society. It is pertinent for all these groups, the Young Lawyers Network, the Female Lawyers Network, the Ministry of Ethics, that have all come out to condemn him. It is important for them to all come out and say, okay, there are bigger problems that we have to cook, but this thing you've said is wrong. But okay, it's wrong. Let's move on to bigger issues. But then again, my question comes back to him and what you're talking about. Why would you in the first place say something that would divert the whole legal profession from handling bigger issues to come out and say, oh, you're speaking wrongly?
But then
That's where I fault Semakade or Council Semakade from.
But then hasn't
There
the
is a
entire
saying.
legal profession already been diverted?
I believe Council Semakade is a brilliant lawyer, one of the most brilliant lawyers that we have in this country. And his choice of words, I don't want to believe that I'm misinformed, and I want to believe he's very deliberate on his choice of words. That if you want to bring the attention of the people, make noise. In whatever way that you want to make noise. Because many people out there had capitulated, because the Law Society had been kind of co-opted, they believed there was some kind of patronage, and they had given up on the Law Society and even the affairs of the Law Society. Now here's the second Makade who comes in and says, okay, let's shout and get the attention of everyone bring them on table and say, okay, now this is the bigger problem we're having. And I believe he could be deliberate on his kind of language in such a way that to bring people on table and say, okay, this is the direction that we must take. If we are to talk good governance, maybe the past lawyers have tried, like he said, there have been reports that from the Law Society, but no person had been paying attention. But right now, all eyes are on the Law Society because of Council Semakade. And so this now changes the discussion away from the language. Since you're all here, okay, whereas your language is unpalatable, but we have heard what you have said. Can we now go on table? Last time I saw him talking to the Chief Justice, we don't know what the outcomes would be from the discussion that they had with the Chief Justice.
I think from what he's saying,
Very briefly.
briefly actually,
Yes.
I think this is a strategic move by senior counsel just to seek attention. Because from what he's telling me, what he's really submitting, it seems this is a strategic move, but we cannot entertain an illegality as we are trying to solve out.
It is not an illegality.
Okay, it is morally wrong because actually there is a statement in the case of Chiinji Kenneth. Is it Isaac Chiinji, the recent case from the Court of Appeal, where the judge was trying to discuss something and he stated that what looks like a duck, moves like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Which means if senior counsel uses the same language and the courts are going ahead to charge the people with the same language, which means he either falls the other side or the other people fall on his.
He hasn't been arraigned before any court.
No, I'm trying to
petition
mean,
against that.
I'm trying to bring out the fact that we have to keep in line that we can't compromise the biggest agenda we have. And the language or the decorum is trying to destroy. It's the one that is corrupting the credibility he has, the agenda, because we all loved his agenda. But yeah, but it's really compromised.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, I have one last question as we conclude for you. What does ULS mean to the citizens of Uganda? Because we speak of it as advocates, we speak of it as law students, we speak of it, but what does Uganda Law Society mean to Ugandans?
Thank you so much for that question. And that question is one of the things I was just meditating on this morning. Beyond people who have read the acts, who have studied law, what is ULS? ULS stands for justice. ULS stands for protection of human rights. ULS stands for honor, decorum, all these kinds of things. There are so many things that ULS stands for. But at the forefront of everything, ULS stands for justice. That is why, despite all the character flaws of the president, I still want him in there to deal with all these injustices. But then again, it also stands for honor. He has to respect that aspect of honor that the ULS stands for. And that's how the Ugandan people view ULS.
So what is the future of ULS? What does it look like right now?
It's messy, I can say, but the present. But the future, I would say the ideal future that I envision of ULS is the respect of, yes, the rule of law, but also at the same time, the respect for the decorum, the honor that the legal profession stands for. We should stand for justice and rule of law in our society, but that does not mean we should fall short in aspects of decorum, honor that the legal profession is known for and has been reputable for since its inception.
Realistically speaking.
Yes.
So that's idealistic.
Ideally speaking, but realistically speaking, I don't know. I can't really predict, but I can say that Semakade, as the president of the ULS, if he stays president of the ULS, there will be more events like this taking place, truthfully speaking. But again, on the other hand, on the good side of everything, there will be justice realized in Uganda. That's what I see. Above everything, he will champion justice.
Okay, he will champion justice. Okay, then thank you, Josie. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of our show. But before we do that, I would like to give each of the panelists the chance to give their very very brief closing remarks. And I will start with Abraham, then move on to Haruna, and then finally we shall have Jesse to close us for the afternoon.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm really obliged to be part of such a good discussion. And the last remark I give is that we are all stakeholders, provided you're a law student and a citizen of Uganda. You're a stakeholder on such issues. You can give your opinion in the right channels or to the right people. And all I pray is that senior counsel can edit in his character or in his conduct, and because he has the best agenda to pursue the vision of the ULS. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Abraham. Go ahead, Haruna.
Thank you so much, Danita, and I want to appreciate my colleagues and everyone that has been online viewing this. My parting shots to everyone out there. Listen to the values, one, the legal fraternity, but also as a country, if you're talking about rule of law, does it matter how I come out to talk about it? If you're talking about good governance, if you're talking about corruption in this country, abuse of human rights, should it have a face or even a skin that maybe such a person that is putting on this kind of dress, this person with this kind of face is the one that's supposed to address it? Really, should that be a matter of concern to us? All those fundamental issues that we uphold as a country: good governance, rule of law, democracy, and good governance. I think that's the most critical thing that we should be paying attention to than all these other trivialities, so that every person can be given space to address these issues,
Okay.
regardless of who they are, how they are bringing it out.
Okay.
Thank you so
Haruna.
much.
Jesse.
Thank you so much to our viewers, and thank you so much, Danita, for having us. I will just say briefly that I believe in the duality, as I've been talking about for this whole segment, that there can be the upholding of justice by the Uganda Law Society, and there can also be the upholding of decorum and honor that is tagged to the legal profession. And I believe that it's possible, it's something that is achievable, and I see that in the future of the Uganda Law Society.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Haruna. Thank you, Abraham. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of yet another show. I thank you so much for keeping with us until the very close. This has been a riveting discussion, and I think it all just comes down to one thing, that is the layman, in whom we are all in service as law students, as lawyers, as fellow citizens. In the end, in regards to whatever decision we make, let us not forget our brother, that we are our brother's keeper, and let us not forget that we owe a duty to each other as citizens, as human beings, and since this is God's nation, as God's children. I thank you so much and have a good afternoon.